Welcome to the Heritage Church Boom Shakalaka Podcast, where our mission is to love one more to Jesus and encourage each other to grow. We do that by further breaking down our best Boom Shakalaka moments at Heritage, so we can grow in knowledge of the Word together.
You know, I love talking to pastors, but rarely do I get a chance to talk to pastors' wives. But today, I have that chance. Pastor Heath, in recent sermon series on family matters, you had an entire family, your entire family, on the stage for a question and answer time that gave the congregation a chance to, see the personal side of your life. Today, we have your wife, Rachel, as our guest.
Yeah, let's go.
Yeah, and she's going to give her perspective on family life as a pastor's wife. I mean, this is Rachel's Unplugged. I mean, she's going to tell it all, right?
Look out.
But before we get to her, Pastor Heath, I want to ask you about the challenges of marriage as a family couple. I mean, I've been a pastor for many, many, many years. I know some of those challenges. What's your perspective on it?
You know, it's so funny because I think about a great example of what you're talking about is 14 years ago, over 14 years ago, I felt a call of God to come to northern Minnesota. Rachel did not feel the call of God to that church. And then she affectionately referred to this area as the frozen tundra.
Wow.
Here we are, bro. And it was tense. It was tense doing God's will and not sure. I don't know. I mean, at the time, she was not happy. Now, fast forward 9 years ago, I felt like walking out of church, being done with ministry. And I had a guy in the lobby, just to give you an idea about the kind of church we walked into. He slapped me on the face and he said, "You don't give an F about old people." And a death by 1,000 cuts. And I was tired of ministry. I had a lady tell me one time, she says, and she was serious. This was not a backhanded compliment. This was a real comment that really represents the kind of hand that we were dealt. She said, "I like everything about you but your hair." And I had a hawk back in the day. And so there was just a lot of things in the hardship of church. And then I went to her and I'm like, "I feel like God's calling us away." And she's like, "Nope, not happening." And so thank God that I listened to her then. And man, that was 9 years ago. We've seen great ministry opportunity, but there's some stress in marriage because, there's a lot of things you feel like God's saying to you, just a lot of stuff. And so that really represents kind of behind the scenes in the sense of how we operate and a little bit of a tension. And I mean, I tell that story. There's just no way to communicate the tension that both of those scenarios created.
Last weekend, you talked about grit. So obviously you got some grit along the way, right? Because you stayed. Rachel, what do you think about all that?
I mean, definitely are there challenges because you're dealing with a world that just floods everything you're doing. So every decision we make is based off of our ministry and our calling. But I would say when your focus is on the Lord and just doing what He's called you to do, that really helps to move you through those challenges in ministry. We haven't always seen eye to eye, but we have both been focused on what the Lord wants and trusting the Lord. And so He's carried us through many of those challenges.
Are you glad you're here in Minnesota, honey? Are you glad?
That's a loaded question.
All right.
And I love our home, and
say that I love our church one more time.
Love our church.
We love our church. It's the weather, isn't it? It's the weather. It's the weather.
Had a shorter winter.
Oh my! This is the girl that literally wears a snowsuit, like a sweater in August.
Let me say something about my wife. The last church Rachel, that we served, it was hard on her. She felt isolated. I was gone all the time. There were a lot of unkind words that were spoken to her over the course of time. She felt bullied at times. Church leaders were unkind and arrogant, and they seemed to always be looking for fault. Now, those are her words, not mine. What do you think about that?
It's definitely those scenarios that have taken place. I would say being a pastor's wife can be very, very lonely. We've had hurt from multiple people, and Some of them have been staff, not necessarily here, but in other places. So you begin to think, well, maybe I can't have those close relationships with the church people, but maybe I can with the staff. And then you get hurt by the staff. And so you do feel very lonely and isolated. But I think, again, it goes just back to the calling. You can do anything when you know you're doing God's will. And the Lord has really replaced in my life, not that I don't have a need for relationships and friends, but He's given me just so many other outlets that here we are, 14 years in Minnesota. And quite honestly, I'm really content out on my farm with my chickens. So
and her bees, and and her garden, and we could just keep going down the list.
I came up with a little thing that I wrote down, and I think you guys are a team. Obviously, husband and wife are always a team, even though Pastor Heath, oversees the church, but Rachel, you oversee him. It's true. I could never do what I do either now or before without her. She was my teammate.
I mean, people don't see that you come home and you're discouraged, or you have, somebody complains, or there's a struggle, and then she has to like putty knife me off the floor, speak life, more like get up, more not there's not a lot of compassion with her, right? So she's just like, you need to quit whining, right? Yeah, you're right,
yes,
right?
Yes, yes.
I mean, bro, no compassion. No, like, I love you. You're amazing. It's like, just get up. Like, get up off the floor and let's keep moving forward, right?
Yeah, well, women are, essential for everything in life, but especially a pastor's wife has such a great calling on her life, just like you have a calling. I mean, unfortunately, you get all the accolades because everyone sees you every Sunday. But I say in my home, my wife is the brains of the outfit. So, yeah, I get it.
For years, I mean, she, whatever we needed at the church. I mean, when we were back in Princeton, Illinois, our church, we had 50 people, and she did what needed to be done to have effective ministry. She's always filling roles. Baseball, they call it the utility player. Just doing what it takes, man. And so I'm proud of her for that. And people don't see that, stepping up at the last minute. I mean, obviously being a mother so that I could do what I needed to do on our gathering days. And it's just awesome, man. Thank God for our wives.
Well, Rachel, I appreciate your response as things get tough in the pastorate. You say, as long as you feel like you're doing God's will, you're okay. But let me ask another question in a different way. Sometimes the church has been called a pastor's mistress because he's always gone, always going, always attending meetings. What do you think about that? Do you feel sometimes that you're competing for his attention or his love or his whatever with the church?
I think there's been seasons where I have felt that way. However, again, just going back to understanding it's the calling, I knew kind of what I was getting into when I chose to marry him and when I knew I was marrying a pastor. However, he also makes our family a priority. So while there have been seasons where I have felt like we've had to been pushed to the wayside, or we couldn't do something because he had another church activity planned or whatever, overall, I think things have run really smooth. We just make it happen. The seasons are so short-lived for me. I'm just willing to do what it takes so that the ministry can happen. And he's really good at, if he has been busy for a while, kind of just making us a priority for a period of time. And so we don't quite feel like he's absent or that there's a mistress out there.
Well, he's very wise at doing that. Now, I know, Rachel, you're a professional woman. You have your own calling in a way. That is, you're a principal of a school district. And so, you have your stuff. Do you think that being a pastor's wife has prepared you in some way for some of the challenges that you have to face professionally every day?
It most definitely has prepared me. You have to have thicker skin as a pastor's wife, and you have to have thicker skin as a principal. There are just so many challenges that we've faced in ministry that have created more grit in my life, have just helped develop things within me, like how to listen before I speak, and just people skills in general, how to deal with difficult people. And all of those do play over into what I'm doing now.
Yeah, that's great. So, Rachel, you were asked a question on stage in front of the congregation.
And we're going to hit right away some of the hardest stuff as parents and as families, and that is, how do I discipline in a way that reflects grace and truth? Rachel, I'll start with you.
We didn't do well, maybe, with grace and truth when they were younger, just because we've set really high expectations, and it was like, here's the expectation, you didn't do it, boom. But one of the things I kind of learned over the years is, and I'm not perfect at it at all yet, but it's in the back of my head, is to really understand the behavior before reacting. Disobedient behavior, wrong behavior needs to be disciplined and corrected, but sometimes knowing the motive or the heart or the purpose or whatever happened behind it will adjust how you discipline. Instead of just coming down hard right away, that's where the grace and truth needs to come in. And then just love your kids through it all. Like, you don't hold the grudges. They do it, you discipline it, you move on. Okay, so this is just something that crossed my mind. The celebration thing, we struggled with, but I know for myself, growing up, I had the high expectations and my parents didn't celebrate it because it was just, well, yeah, of course. When I got my master's or my EDS, I'm an adult, I did that, I was proud of myself, but the response I got from my father, instead of when I called and I said, hey, Dad, I just finished my EDS degree, it wasn't, oh my gosh, awesome job, Rachel. It was, yeah, we didn't expect anything less. And so I'm so glad that my parents believe in me, but we were raised, or at least I was raised, not celebrating what was just what they thought I just could do. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Stopping to celebrate the things, even if it's something that you just know they can do.
Was there anything, Rachel, in that clip that you wanted to add from that day as you listened to it? Is there more to it than what we heard?
I don't know that I would change much of anything. I mean, parenting is a learning process, right? Every day it's a different challenge. Once you think you've learned one thing with your child, they switch it up on you. So I just think I would continue to confirm the idea that when you parent and when you discipline, you have to find that balance between grace and truth, because disobedience needs to be disciplined. However, how we discipline might be different based off of the scenario or the heart behind what the child did. Heath and I were very, there's a word for it.
Hard-lined, stringent, strict.
A little more like dictators. This was the rule. This is how you're going to behave. If you did it wrong, there's a consequence. And I just feel like we needed to take time to understand our children a little bit more, not just discipline everything because it was incorrect. Their behavior would still probably need to be disciplined, but I think there are times we could have handled situations differently if it wasn't just so cut and dry, that was wrong, here's your consequence.
So even though your children at this point have all come back to the Lord, but there was a time that several of them were absent, right? And did you ever feel conscientious about that as you go to church? Did you feel sort of like people were judging you and saying, well, you're a pastor's wife, you're a pastor, why are your kids way off in Sinville?
You know what's funny? I just got to add this. The other day I was in our little storage area off of our house and I ran onto a picture I think one of our boys made, and it's my wife holding up a beer bottle from one of the boys, and she had found it somewhere in our home and she was ticked. And that is a picture of what you are talking about, bro. And we haven't got rid of it. It's one of those, you send the picture in and they make it a canvas. And I'm like, I wanted to burn the picture, but now it really represents like where we came out of. It was so funny. And so I just thought that's interesting. But our people, I didn't mean to butt in, but I thought that was funny because I saw it the other day. But what do you think? Larry had asked about people's judgmental attitude, or did we feel a sense of grace in the church?
I don't know that I struggled with thinking that people were judging us necessarily as much as I just felt like a failure. I guess my personality is just a little bit different than some, and so I wasn't too concerned what other people thought. These were my kids and they were making their choices and I couldn't change that. But at the same time, I felt like a failure. Like, if there was something I had done different, maybe they wouldn't be making these choices. I guess I didn't struggle with what the church people thought, because my kids are kids and they're going to make their own choices and they're going to walk their own journeys. But I really struggled with the idea that somehow I had failed them. On occasion, when I hear about other people talk about their children who never made any of those mistakes or decisions growing up, I get a little jealous. I get a little bit like their kids.
Yeah.
What different that their kids served the Lord all the way through high school and didn't run into any of these problems. So I get a little jealous of that. However, I guess I wasn't embarrassed when it came to the church, just more felt like a failure.
Well, I think that's good insights, Rachel, because I think people who have wayward kids, you can have a tendency of having a, soft heart toward them because, again, nothing that we do has perpetrated that particular behavior. It's just kids learning life, and life sometimes throws some curveballs, and that's just the way it is. But how you responded with each other and how you worked through it, and God gave you grace and your kids came back. Thank the Lord. So here's what you said about being disappointed with family decisions or family members making decisions you didn't agree with.
Okay, it wasn't easy. There were lots of tears at 2 a.m, a little bit of being angry at God. We give our life to the Lord, our whole world is to the Lord, and then our kids weren't serving him. But navigating through it, for me, it just came really down to prayer and trusting in the word. When the word says, when you raise a child up in the way that they should go, they will not depart from it. So I held strong onto that. As far as parenting, we dealt with the issues as they came up, but we tried to just love and enjoy our kids when we weren't dealing with the issues in the moment. Does that make sense? Like, if Grayson came home high or, something was going on, obviously we address it in that moment, but that doesn't mean 3 hours later we're still on it. We're moving on as a family and loving and that type of stuff. I would also say one thing I wish we maybe didn't do is we were in denial, maybe a little bit, or blind. As soon as we caught Hattie, we were on her almost too hard. Judah either hit it really well in high school or didn't start the worst of it till he was out of the home at college. Grayson really was an easy child till he was 12, 13, and then it started going down. But what happened with Grayson is we didn't believe it. There was no way he did it. We were in denial. Listen, guys, when the teacher tells you your kid is doing something, they're doing it.
Yeah, it's good.
When a sibling says their brother or sister is doing it, they're doing it. Quit living in denial. Quit thinking your kid is above it, because they're not.
I really like how you ended that clip with addressing the denial that often is our response to our kids' failings. Do you think some of this denial is more about the reputation of parents rather than the accusations against the child?
I definitely dealt with just feeling like a failure and their issues. When you look at kids, and I'm just going to tie in the school system here, when a school calls a parent and says that their child might need to be considered for special ed, and the parents immediately dig their heels in, it's not because they want to say my kid doesn't need help. It's that how could one of their kids need help? We struggled that with one of our children. She needed to redo one of her grades, and she just struggled with reading. Came out later that she probably was dyslexic. But I remember at the time not wanting to hold her back because I was a gifted student. So how could one of my kids, if I was gifted and accelerated, how could she need to be held back? And I had to realize that I was more caught up on what I thought made me look like a failure than I was what was best for my child. And I think we do that a lot. I think people go into denial about things because they think how it makes them look rather than acknowledging things because that's what's actually best for their child for moving forward and solving problems.
I remember when I was a youth pastor and I hear that word denial, and I remember when you had mentioned something about parents not accepting the fact of that their kid did something wrong. There's this complete pushback. And I remember years ago when we were youth pastoring in Illinois, and there was a girl that was smooching that I cared about. And somebody had mentioned that she was smooching. Her dad was a pastor on our team. All I did was, hey, I went to the dad because I figured, you know what, I would want to know because you can't deal with what you don't know. And I just simply offered this, hey, this is kind of what I heard. Do you want to check it out? And it ended up blowing up in my face to where he didn't like me anymore. There was tension, there was frustration. And I'm thinking, you jerk. I was just cared enough about you for you to check it out. And now all of a sudden I'm the one that's in trouble or the problem because I presented something to you. People are not going to call you or talk to you because they're just trying to create drama. There's got to be some sense of legitimacy to what they're saying. And so it's just so interesting how that people don't want to believe 0% of the story. Maybe there's always 1 or 2 or 5 or 10 or 30, 40, 50%. And I think it's worse nowadays than ever before because generations, I don't know, you could do a generational study on Gen Z and millennials and the way they were parented, and then you couple that. I just think I bet you anything there's more of that my kid would never do anything attitude, and it's just not true.
Well, I grew up in a generation that we always hid things. You didn't, as a pastor, as a minister, as clergy, you didn't want anyone to know your dirt. So you just kept it all quiet. I appreciate Pastor Heath, that he's very honest in the pulpit. And I think that I would say to both of you, I love the honesty and the clarity in which you express yourselves about issues and problems. So in conclusion today, if you were going to speak to a congregation of people who've had wayward kids or just have some problems in parenting, what would you say based on your experience going through raising your family?
I think the first thing I would say is God is the perfect father and Adam and Eve still sinned. So you can be a perfect parent, but your child is still going to make choices. And that doesn't necessarily reflect on you. Mm-hmm. The other thing I would say is just pray, 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 because God is faithful. I would say keep loving your kids. Just keep loving your kids, because it's through prayer and then just the faithfulness of building those relationships with your kids that's going to help bring them through. And we were lucky enough that our kids came through within 3 to 5 years. And at the time, every day felt like a million years. Now, looking back, we can see that it was a season. And I understand that some people, their season is significantly longer, and that's got to be even more heartbreaking. But however, I would just say, just keep being faithful with prayer and just loving and building relationships with your kids. Do not allow their choices to break relationship.
You said something in your presentation that morning on the stage where you said you kept inviting them, even though they were, not living the way they should. You always kept inviting them. You kept giving them grace, and they would come or not come, but you always made them still feel they were part of the family. And I think Judah, your son, said that really, really impressed him about, his family.
I think relationship is, prayer, obviously that's the most important, but continuing to build roads of relationship is massive. I mean, I remember when each season our kids would go through something, the intentionality of taking that particular kid to ice cream or to something that I could build into them, not even talking about their behavior or what they did. But I think sometimes they're crying out for help when they misbehave. And it's an indicator that relationship needs to go to the next level. Yeah. And that's what we did, man. And so I think that worked, that helped. Relationship, prayer. Those two things, can't beat them.
Here's a clip that I pulled from that morning about advice that you would give to your younger self. Here's what you guys said.
Don't be a Bears fan. Just kidding. Just kidding. That's the first thing that popped in my head.
That was a really good answer.
Root for the Patriots or something like that, right?
Just say skull for me one time,
no,
please.
No. Definitely not.
I would say, I would tell myself to enjoy every moment and every season. We're very driven people. We're always ready, like boom, 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 to go to the next thing. It's easy to see the frustration and the hard moments in every season and not always embrace the good things and the enjoyable moments of every season. You've got a screaming newborn. You can't wait till they sleep through the night. They sleep through the night. You can't wait till they're potty trained. And it's just always waiting for that next step. You're happily married, but you can't wait till you have a kid. Enjoy that time together. So good. Enjoy your moment and your season without always pushing forward to the next one. So if I could tell myself that and actually make myself obey it, that's what I would say.
I would totally agree with that. I mean, because when I was single, when we were dating, let's get married. Then once we're married, let's have our first kid, and then second kid, and there's always thresholds that you're always looking towards. And I would totally, and I don't know if that's a driven personality thing. I mean, maybe it's a cultural thing. As Americans, we're always looking, and so I would say rest in the moment, enjoy the moment.
Okay, our final question has to do with how can a congregation bless a pastoral family? Husband and wife, are there things that you would like? I mean, yeah, give me a raise. I don't know. But aside from that, what would you want from the congregation to really bless your family with? What would that be?
I know for me, I have always felt more blessed when people bless my kids. When my kids are getting loved on, when people are recognizing that they are a part of everything that Heath does, and they intentionally see them, that is honestly what blesses me the most.
Yeah, and I could talk from what our church did, because our church was phenomenal. I think our church here at Heritage was integral in the sense of our kids coming to know the Lord in a real way after they veered. I mean, we had people from the church show up at their basketball games. We had people put them under their wing and love on them. We had people take them to their home and let them swim. And there was just a lot of engagement from our people to just let them know, we see you. We just don't see your dad or your parents, which is awesome. I'm telling you, we have the greatest church on the planet. There's no question about it. And they loved our kids.
Well, this is their podcast. Heritage podcast called what?
Boom Shakalaka. Let's go.
Okay. All right. You have a message as you conclude that you want people to do something. What is it?
Yeah. No, I think it's super important for people as they listen to this to share it with other people. There's some great content that has came and that is coming in regards to what we're talking about. So share it with a friend, share it on your social media, and let's boom shakalaka together.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. We pray that you have been encouraged and strengthened in your faith. To find out more about Heritage Church in Baxter, Minnesota, you can go to iamheritage.org. And to find more information about this podcast, go to iamheritage.org/podcast.